I'm going to try to make roofs be extremely simple for you to do with the manual roof tools. And that is just that I need to explain a couple concepts about how, on the builder side, how do we even think about building roofs just for very typical wood frame construction in Northern America. So, from the build side, we typically build everything based on a uniform platform, okay? And so what I have here is what I'm showing on the screen is we've got three different platform heights, all right? And so these are establishing three different plate heights. So when we build roofs, we are always thinking about the plate height first because that's how we approach this from the builder standpoint. So if you've got a background in architectural design, maybe you came from the colleges, maybe you've got a background in interior design, and you're trying to understand some kind of an existing roof system to rebuild an existing roof, because typically that's the side that I see where we're struggling understanding how the roof tools even use and how we are used and how we implement them. And again, I'm using that word typical very liberally, all right? So if we want to understand how to recreate a roof system that already exists, the most important thing is understanding the plate height of the building, because this is how we build. I'm going to show you what I mean by plate height. I'm going to use the delete surface tool here to just expose our framing members here. And so what I have is three different plate heights. That's this top plate when we're talking about plate height, okay? Why is plate height important? Well, as a builder, what I'm doing is I'm building this lower platform of this building, and once I have that, I'm standing on that platform. I got my bags on, I got my nails, nail gun, what have you, my 2x4 is laid out with my chop saws, and I'm cutting these studs, all right? Or I'm getting pre-cut studs because this is such a common approach that even the big box stores have studs cut to the correct length for this wall I have right here in Chief Architect, as well as this wall and this wall. I can go to my big box store right now and buy one of these framing members already cut to length, because that's how common this is, okay? And so what we're doing is we're taking this wall assembly. If we go open up the CAD detail for this, I'm going to frame this while it's laying on the ground and then stand it up, put a little cleat in there to keep it standing up until I've got an adjacent wall framed up that I stand up, and I connect the corners, and I go on, so forth, all right? Now, after I have that established, we have a uniform plate height. So our roof is designed by that plate height. And in any given building, typical wood frame construction in most parts of North America, we're only going to have one, two, three different plate heights for any given building. It's a little bit less common. We're getting into the McMansion area when we get more than three different plate heights. In fact, a lot of buildings will just have one plate height. That's it. What does that mean? That means I don't necessarily even need to know what the fascia height is compared to the terrain, which is something that's measurable when I go to an existing home, what the ridge height is inside of a vaulted ceiling when I walk in, okay? When I walk into a home, and let me just switch to my camera, when I walk into a home, in my jurisdiction, in my area, we've only got about 4 or 5 counties. In those 4 or 5 counties, we only have about 4 different roof pitches. We only also have about 3 different plate heights. We're going 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot plate heights at 4 and 12 pitch, 5 and 12 pitch, 6 and 12 pitch, 8 and 12 pitch. So I have such a trained eye that when I walk into a home, I can look around and say, I can see how much space is above the window, and these windows and doors are all at the same level, 80-inch jamb height, okay? And so I know this is a 9 foot ceiling. And I know from just looking as I walked up to the house, looking at it, I could tell that's a 4 and 12 pitch roof. Do I need to know anything else? The only other thing I need to know is roughly what my Eave overhang is. That's about it. Other than that, I'm going to take pictures as references, and we'll maybe get into that. But what I'm looking at immediately off the bat is I don't need to measure the vault. I don't need to measure the peak to the vault. So if I'm in a room and it's a vaulted ceiling and there's just a simple typical peak vaulted ceiling, I don't need to measure it because I already know what it is. It's not built based on the peak down. It's built based on that plate height going up. Okay. What do I mean by that? Let me switch back to our main screen here. Is I can design this entire roof for this particular building just by putting the roof plane tool. Let me just do this real quick. I'm going to do the roof plane tool there. We're going to copy paste reflect about the edge. I'm going to copy paste reflect about the edge. Do it one more time. Okay. Now I need to do that roof plane tool again right here because Chief Architect knows to automatically draw it in the correct location. I'm going to show you what I mean here in just a second. So copy paste reflect about, copy paste reflect about. Okay. Now the reason that this is so important to do it this way is because there's something called a baseline in Chief Architect. I'm going to explain what that baseline is. We're going to open up this roof plane here. If we zoom in on this, the baseline is when we have our wall assembly, there are main layers. That's in the middle of that wall assembly. There's an exterior side, there's an interior side, then there's a main layer. You can put as many different layers as you want in that main layer, but of all those main layers, the most exterior side of the main layer is this point right here on the screen, and that is where our baseline should go for a roof where we've got a typical heel height or bird's mouth cut, what have you. This is going to be a typical roof assembly, okay? So our baseline is aligned with this exterior of that main layer. Why is that impactful? Well, in this is my template. This is the template I sell. In this template, you're going to see in this view that this little 90-degree CAD line here represents the baseline, and the baseline, as you can see here, this is my full wall assembly that's highlighted, but all we're seeing is the main layer. All right, that's because in my layer properties, I'm only showing main layer only. Okay, that just makes it really easy to design this roof and ensure that my baseline is in the correct location. Okay, why is it that this is the correct location? Let's get back to this little 3D view here, and I'm going to show you what happens when we do some common little mistakes. Okay. I'm trying to conform a roof. I'm trying to figure out how these roof tools work. And so what I'm doing is, hey, I know that the overhang here is incorrect. This is 1'6". It needs to be like, I don't know, 2'4". So I'm just dragging the center edit handle of this roof plane. That's a mistake. Why? Because it moved the baseline. So the correlation between the baseline and the main wall layer of our wall assembly just changed. So we see what happened in 3D was this roof plane is now raised up above that plate line. It's no longer bird's mouth cut. It's no longer seated on that. It's effectively a heel height now. And we don't want that. How can we fix it? Well, a couple different ways. We could have just not moved that center edit handle of the roof planes. But if you have the baseline layer turned off, and mind you, that is a very different layer. Okay, it's a different layer than the roof planes layer. All right, so if you're not seeing that 90-degree check there, it's on a different layer. If for some reason you're not seeing it and you want to make it really, really obvious, you should turn on line weights and change the baseline line weight of that layer to something crazy like 1000. And then you'll see where your baseline is for your kind of errant roof plane malfunction. Right? So what happens when I just drag this baseline back, snap it right to that main wall layer? Watch what happens. We get that seat cut back. That's correct. So effectively, we've just changed the overhang of the eave. That's it. Alternatively, you could have just come in here, punched in what your eave overhang is, and if you needed to move this in a corresponding way, you would just drag this edit handle. That's what you would do. So, okay. Now that we have these different roof planes established, I'm going to come back to this 3D view and just show you how quick and easy it is to manipulate these in 3D just using 3 main tools. All right. It was that copy paste. It was that reflect about. Maybe it's 4 main tools. I'm going to select this edge. Now in my preferences in Chief Architect, I have selected edges set to that yellow color. It makes it really obvious for me to see this. Now we can see that this is a yellow color. That's the selected edge. In my edit toolbar, which mine's floating on the screen, yours might be at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to use this tool right here, join roof planes. And so I'm going to join and hover over the plane I want to join to. I want this roof plane to magically connect to this roof plane at the corner of the building. Because I copy pasted this roof plane about the center of the building, that means these baselines are in the correct location, and I could use this tool to just join them in the middle. Look at that. I'm going to show you how quick and easy this is. I get to just rotate around, do the same thing over here, rotate around, do the same thing here, and just keep going about this. Now, it just so happens to be that I can tell, just from looking at this, that this roof plane and this roof plane is going to just end up being one big triangle. So I can just drag this up till it crosses itself and it will snip to that triangle. Okay. Now these other ones are not going to be a triangle, so I could just take this edge and use that join roof plane tool to join it on this other side. Look at that. That roof's done. Move on to the next one. How fast and easy, right? So same thing. We're just going to work through this edge by edge. Join roof plane tool. Bam. Work through this edge by edge. Isn't this quick? Isn't this easy? This is going to come to a point. We know that, all right? And what's going to happen with this? Let me extend this out a little bit. This is going to snap to that point. I know it is. Bam. I don't care about this one because what just happened when I snapped up to this point? That is the true center of this room. It's the true center. So whatever I do going forward to this roof plane means I could copy paste about the center of this section of room, and it will be a perfect roof plane on this side as well, including the baseline being in the right location. So I can just delete this roof plane. I've got what I need right here. These two, I've got what I need now, okay? The next part is I don't want to frame over this roof plane. I want to create a valley. And to prep for this and to make this as easy as possible, this is probably the easiest way I think you can do this. There are a couple different ways you could do it, but a very easy way is using that break tool. We're going to use that break tool and we're going to sticky mode it. And all I need is 1, 2, 3 breaks. Okay. Now it might be easier and conducive to your understanding if I drag this up to understand the correlation between this and what's going to happen here. But maybe not. Maybe we just trust the process and say, hey, there are 3 breaks here. This is a selected edge. This is a selected edge. There's another selected edge. There's the last selected edge, okay? Now I need the same thing to happen here. This is only going to be partially, this edge right here is only going to partially match up with this upper section. So I need another break. I'm use that break tool. Now I have 2 edges on this one roof plane's side here, okay? I can take this, I can use join roof planes, and you can see here, it's already picking up and understanding what needs to happen. Okay, so now, did this get fixed? No, it didn't, right? So it maybe would have been conducive for me to, bring that back so that it was like a receiver there, right? It's gonna make a lot more sense for me to just do this, bring that in like that, okay? Now, once I have this, it's going to be easy for me to select this edge, join roof plane tool, bam. Look at that. At this point, I get to just drag this flat section till it kind of snaps to the wall in this view, all right? Hopefully it snaps, maybe it doesn't. It's going to be somewhere in there, something like that. This might be the point where you have to come back to a plan view to really understand where that roof plane is to get this to snap perfectly, okay? Bam, snap that perfectly. Let's come back to this view. This roof plane's now set up perfectly. It's exactly as it needs to be. I get to copy paste, reflect about the ridge. Let's just confirm this. Go back to the plan view. What happened? I missed that ridge just a little bit. That's because I have trim displayed. And so I was reflecting about maybe a trim edge, right? I want to make sure that I'm reflecting about a true center. How do we do that? Come back to this roof plane. There we go. We're going to go center that roof plane. Now let's go confirm. Look at that. Baseline's in the perfect spot. Okay. There. This lower roof's done. The last step here on the upper section is join roof planes and catch that little snip of, you're going to have to catch this very carefully. Something like that. There we go. I kind of screwed this up, so that's okay. We can always just come back, select about. Cool, done. look at that. The wall's automatically built all the way up, built all the way up. This is looking perfect, okay? Last section here, just go through it. Boom, just like that. This is gonna be so easy. I wish they had a tool that would just extend to whatever adjacent wall. They don't have that tool, so you're gonna kind of have to play around with this. Get this, there we go. Sometimes it picks up a snap, depends, you gotta kind of pan the view. And it didn't quite get it right. If you get it close, it will in fact snap correctly. But sometimes you gotta fight it. This is where you come to that plan view and might be better. Now, what happens when we kind of draw this up? Does this look like it's gonna come to a ridge? Yeah, it does. So we're gonna just make that cross itself just like that. Make it cross itself just like that. This one's going to be a little bit funny. We get to take this edge. You want to extend this one to the wall. Get it as close as you can. Take this edge. Join roof planes. See if we can. Yep, those are going to meet in the middle just like that. Now, the last part of this is these two roof planes cross right there. Right? So we're going to use that brake tool again. Use that brake tool and drag this down. You don't really have to worry about the angles that you're producing from this. Kind of drag this guy down too. And maybe we get a little roof plane action. Cool. This has one little last peak. That's just because I needed to do a little break right there. And I can conform it back, pick up some snaps. There we go. This roof is looking perfect. Go back to just a 3D view that more like a ray trace view. Obviously, I need to extend this, you know, to the point where it hits this wall, etc. But yeah, manual tools, super quick and easy to understand. Now, I want to explain one more concept before I get off of this video, and that is oftentimes we're still building from a singular plate height, but we might have a different pitch at some point, okay? So if we're dealing with something that has a different pitch, let me just show you an example of this. I'm going to bring this, I'm going to have this just cross itself. I'll put a break right here and I'll just cross this. What does that do? When I cross it like this, it's going to cut the excess, right? And then we'll copy paste this forward, bring this forward a little bit, right? And we're going to end up copy pasting this to the other side as well. I don't care that this isn't at a 90 because still get to use that join roof plane tool to kind of conform this, maybe? No. And the other thing we can always do is use that perpendicular, parallel perpendicular tool. So I want to open this up now and I'm going to change the pitch and I'm going to show you an example of what happens when we change the pitch. Mind you, it's still built off of the same plate height. And so what's the relationship change here? Notice that the fascia just changed its relationship to the fascia of the 4 and 12 pitch roof. So this is something you might run into when you're looking at a house. And now that you maybe understand what's happening, you can have a better understanding of how this might be built. There's two scenarios that happen. One scenario might be, and actually, I'm going to take this whole upper section here and I'm going to lower it. I think 2 feet to get it to line up with the section next to it. Okay. Now that I lowered that, this actually created just a huge heel height on all these roof planes for this upper roof. So I'm going to take all these roofs, use transform replicate, and I'm going to move it down 24 inches. It's going to change its relationship. What I want, and let's just rebuild all framing, that's fine. Okay. Notice what happens. Fascia is lined up. Why? Same plate height, same roof pitch. Notice what happens. Fascia is not lined up. So when you walk up to a building and you know it's the same plate height through that whole building, but you see this, you know that this is at a different pitch. Okay. If instead you saw something where the fascia was aligned, but this was a different pitch, what does that tell you? That tells you there's a heel height distance here. There's a baseline change, okay? There we go. This should help you understand how these roofs come together a little bit more clearly. This should immediately tell you info. When you walk up to a building and you see this, should immediately tell you info, especially when it's this close. And typically what that means is we've got a different pitch roof, right? That we're building off that same plate height, because we wouldn't go through all the trouble of changing all these wall heights, building custom wall heights, slowing our production way, way down just to get this effect. No. Instead, all this is telling us is we're building to the same plate height, but we've got a different pitch roof. Or we have a different roof assembly. There's different thickness to it. Or we're matching up with some element somewhere else. But that plate height still remains the constant. So again, I don't need to know where the fascia is in relationship to the terrain, which is something I could measure in the field. I don't need to know where that ridge height is. I only need to know what's inside in terms of the overall height of that plate height. I hope this was extremely helpful for you. I want to mention something. I have a membership area, and I just found out that that membership area is not searchable from the broader YouTube if you're not a member, which means I have hundreds of videos in there that you can't find by searching, which is crazy to me, YouTube. I don't know why you're doing that to me. But that means, guess what? I have an entire playlist about building roofs in Chief Architect. It's 12 videos long. Not only that, but you pay a one-time fee. It's a subscription fee, but you can pay it and cancel it after 1 month. And there's over 100 hours of content in there, covering terrain, covering walls, covering details, covering macros, covering cloud integration and management, covering AI stuff. So go check it out. There's a whole playlist in there. And I go more in depth and I handle different scenarios, building more complex roofs than this. Again, I hope this is helpful. Drop a comment. I'm going to put this in my Facebook groups. I'm going to put this in Chief Talk. I'm going to have this on my website. Hopefully this helped you out a tremendous amount. Thank you for watching.